filter module is found on the edit page, and it's another stage of processing the frequency response of the sound, and it falls in the signal flow between the output of the string module over here and the body. Now we can influence the frequency response with the filter types over here. We choose them from here. We have a low pass filter, meaning that frequencies below the value of this knob will be passed through and above it will be filtered out. We have high pass over here, which allows everything above the cutoff point to pass through. We have a band pass filter, which allows a frequency response right around the cutoff point to be passed through. A notch filter, which does the opposite, notches out around this value. And then we have two formant filter types, and we can control the steepness over here. When it's set to 2 times, it's 12 dB per octave for the low and high pass filters and 6 dB per octave cut for the band pass. And it's steeper over here. It's 24 dB cut for the low and high pass per octave and 12 for the band pass. And we turn it on and off there. And the resonance sets the amount that we excite the response of the frequency right around the cutoff point. So let me start by playing you a little clavinet part that I have here. I'm going to leave it on the steeper value here so we can really hear what it's doing. I'm going to play it, and then I'll go through the different filter types and adjust these values to give you a sense of the flavor of what each filter type offers. So you can hear how they filter away the frequency response based on this value here and emphasize that point based on this. Now we can modulate the quality of the filter over time by either the key range or LFO or envelope sections, which are found here. So let's start by just looking at simple key tracking. Now this part I'm playing has a kind of lower range bass part and then some chords up higher. So as I dial this, you'll hear the influence of the filter in the different ranges. So there the lower notes are less filtered and the higher notes are brighter. There's more filtered away. And as I dial it in the opposite direction, you'll hear the different quality of filtering. Now we can also influence the filter with an LFO. I'm going to dial up the LFO depth, meaning how much the low frequency oscillator is going to influence the filter. I'm going to dial it up fairly steeply so we can explore what it does. Now we go to the LFO module here and we can turn it on with this. Now the idea is that we choose a shape over here between a sine wave, triangle, square wave, random, or glitch shape. And then that waveform shape is repeated at a slow rate and used to modulate the value of, in this case, the filter cutoff frequency, but it can also optionally be applied to the resonance. But that shape is applied to modulate this value based on this shape and the speed that we set here. And when the sync button is in, we can sync it to the tempo. So I have it set at daughter quarter notes now. So let's listen to this. I'll leave it off and then I'll put it on and we can hear the influence of it. So sine is a nice sort of smooth shape, and we can try different shapes. And of course that interacts with the value that this is set at to begin with. So let's go back to here and I'll show you these two parameters here. The delay delays the onset of the LFO being applied to the filter, and we delay it here and we can then fade up the effect. Now, because these notes are very short, we can't have too long a delay time or we won't hear the influence of the LFO at all, but a nice short delay with a bit of fade in can add some subtlety to how this influences the cutoff value. Now we can also affect the either frequency or resonance with an envelope. So let me reset this so we're not going to hear the LFO. I've also turned off the module over here. And I'm going to dial in some envelope depth, and I'll dial in a little less of it, again, here on the frequency, so that's what we're going to be affecting. So what this means is that we can control the characteristics of the filter over the time of the duration of the notes. In other words, we can delay the onset of it sweeping up to this cutoff value, so how long it takes to get to that cutoff value rather than it just being immediately on when the note starts. So then once it reaches that cutoff value, how long it takes to revert back to the full on value, and then we can sustain whatever value it decays at. And the release determines, once the note is finished, how long it takes for the filter to fall back to its original value, which won't have that much influence on this particular part because the notes are short and fairly consistent without much space between them. And we also can have the velocity of the notes influence the envelope. So let me play this part with this off. I'll put it on, and then we'll dial these values and hear how they influence the filter over time. Sounds the smoothest with the release around there. So here we can hear the filter opening and closing based on this envelope. And we can also apply this parameter to the resonance. Or maybe we can apply an LFO to the resonance and leave the envelope affect the filter's cutoff value. So that's the filter module with the LFO and envelope settings.